Okie dokie boys and girls, it is day 3 of calisthenics endurance and today we have a skill day. Now, you might be thinking, well Timmy, that's not calisthenics endurance, but the skill days will come in handy for me to just kinda, not as a rest day, but to keep myself active while I prepare my body for the bigger sessions, the long runs which are coming up in a few weeks, or the push-up sessions which take a lot out of me as well. But when it comes to skill trainings, one of the most asked questions is, should you train your skills separately or should you train them together, right? Especially the planche and the front lever, should I do them on one day or should I do them separately? And well, there are benefits and downsides to both of those ways of training, and instead of telling you which one you should do, I'm gonna tell you the downsides and the benefits, and then you can decide for yourself. So when it comes to training skills, if you do them separately, right, the frequency will be lower because one day you're doing planche and the other day you're doing front lever, for example. You might have some rest days as well, so the frequency is lower. And the downside of having lower frequency is that you have less opportunity for your body to adapt to the movement. And basically, if you want to get strong at the skills, if you purely care about strength, it's going to be a worse option. And if you care about muscle building, it is going to be a better option because having less frequency will allow you to basically go harder on each of those skills. So you have a separate day for planche, you can go hard, you can go to failure more than if you were to do them together, because not only are you having lower frequency, but you also have all of your energy of one day to spend on this one movement, while if you do the skills together, you have to distribute it, right? And I guess in explaining this, I kind of mentioned the advantages and disadvantages of doing them together as well. So if you train your skills together on one day, of course, frequency is going to be higher. Like I said, faster progress on the skill itself, although you won't be able to go to failure as much. You will have less intensity for each skill because you have to distribute your energy amongst the different skills that you are training, right? So less intensity also means it's a bit worse for hypertrophy. And if you watched the calisthenics bulk, you will notice that throughout the entire bulk, except for maybe a few sessions, I always did my planche and front lever separately. And that's because I was trying to build some muscle, right? So I not only had the goal of getting stronger, I also had the goal of building muscle. That's why I decided to do them separately. I was able to train planche and front lever harder on those days, but the frequency was lower. So now when it comes to calisthenics endurance, planche and front lever are not my main goals. Of course, I still love them, I still want to do them, but it's not my main goal, so I don't want to go to my absolute max on these movements. And from that standpoint, moving on to a higher frequency approach, I think I will be training planche and front lever about 4 times a week still, but it will be less intensity, and so it's better to do the planche and front lever together so that I can get a light stimulus frequently to maintain or even make progress on those movements without tiring out my body too much. And that's kind of the goal. But today I'm gonna do that as well. So I'm gonna do an alternating planche and front lever session, or I should say planche and Victorian session, because I cannot do a single pull-up, I cannot do a single front lever at the moment with my injury in the side. So I'm just gonna be careful. I think it will heal by itself, but I just have to be patient. But what I tested this morning is if I can do a Victorian still, which I can. So yeah, I'm just gonna get started. I'll be explaining what I do along the way, but it's gonna be interesting, so let's go. All right. This barely is possible. Okay. It hurts a little bit, but I feel like it's not too bad. But doing this Victorian, instead of putting an emphasis on your lats, it will put more of an emphasis on your rear delts because, you know, when it comes to front lever or front lever like exercises in general, when you are with your elbows in front of your body, it puts more pressure on your lats. But then as you move your elbow behind your back, so for example here, you have the normal front lever, but then you do a pull-up and your elbows go behind your back and you try to hold it in the touch. You can see your elbows are aligned with your body. You do a no false touch. You know, they go more back and back and back. And basically, the more that your elbows go backwards, the more that you put emphasis, or the emphasis moves from your lats towards retraction power and rear delt power. So this exercise, floor Victorian, elbows are all the way back. It's almost everything in the rear delts and retraction. But yeah, it's a very good exercise. So I'm gonna just do some light holds today. I'm not gonna go hard because I do still feel that it hurts. But anyway, alternating style. One set every 3 minutes, because if you're doing multiple skills on the same day, you can basically alternate your sets. So you do, for example, a planche on set number 1, and then on set number 2, you do a front lever or something, and while you are doing the front lever, your planche is still resting. So even though my rest time is less than it usually is, you know, every 3 minutes, usually I do every 4 minutes, still I'm able to rest more in between planche sets. Every 6 minutes I do a planche set. So when you do these alternating workouts, I quite like them because they are very time efficient. Well, if you have the time, you can just do a lot of volume, but even if you don't have a lot of time, you can quickly get in a very useful workout. So I think it's almost time for the next set already. Let's go. All right. Planche presses, I think I'm gonna keep it at this today. I've been trying to work a bit on the form, although it hasn't been too good today, but when it comes to the Victorian, it does hurt a little bit, so I'm not gonna do any more sets. And when it comes to training through pain, it's okay, but make sure you're not going too hard. You know, for me, I'm injured at the moment, so my sets aren't too intense. The pain is about 2 or 3 out of 10, and I'm basically making sure that when I wake up tomorrow, the pain is not gonna be worse than it was today. So it's okay to train through pain because then you teach your body that it's okay to do certain movements again. But at the same time, you know, if you do too much at once, well, I don't have to say this, right? You're basically just gonna make your injury worse. But that's why today my sets are a little less intense because I don't want to push too hard. But in general, if you're healthy and skills are your main focus, you know, go a bit more intense, you know. Aim for frequency first of all, but once you have the frequency down, try to add a bit of intensity here and there. Do some sets to failure, but not all of them, and well, enjoy your gains. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna do 3 final sets of planche push-ups. However, I'm gonna keep it at lean planche push-ups because, well, intensity-wise, However, doing an easier progression means that you can get some more volume in, can get the blood flowing, which has its benefits as well. So these sets will definitely not go to waste. And yeah, let's just see what happens. Alright. Okie dokie, so that's it for today's workout. And well, am I happy with how it went? Of course, I would be way happier if I was just able to go balls to the wall and add some intensity to the workout, train the way I want to train. But guess what? Crying about it is not gonna make it happen. So if that's the case, there are two options left. Two things I could have done today. One, I could have entirely skipped my workout. And two, well, I could have done my workout with the things that are still within my reach. And I chose option number two, and even though I never choose option one, I still know which one makes me the happiest, right? You're gonna always be happier putting in the effort that you're able to put in. And basically, if you're asking yourself if you should train today, envision two versions of yourself in the future. One version that trained today and one version that did it. And well, which one is gonna be stronger? I'm gonna, leave it up to you to answer that question, because well, the answer might be different for every one of us, but I think in most cases, as long as you're not lying to yourself, well, of course, training is gonna make you stronger, because, even if you need rest, training does not necessarily mean that you have to go all the way with like failure and drop sets and extreme volume. You can do small trainings, you can do less intense trainings, like light trainings, if you will, right? And still make gains, or at least prevent yourself from losing gains. But yeah, that's it for today's workout, alternating style. And well, I really like this style of training. It's basically what I've done ever since I started calisthenics, especially, in the beginning when I was doing skills. Of course, I didn't do the alternating style when I was bulking, but most of my training career has been focused on skills. And in those days, I would just, alternate between planche and front lever, and then I got tired from doing those skills, and I would maybe do like some impossible dips in between, and then go back to planche and front lever, and back and forth, and train hours on it because I had the time back then I had the time for it. But those sessions really made me strong, I used to be way more focused on skills, and adding the frequency and then also the volume, and well, it really just, it works magic. And by doing these alternating styles, you're basically doubling the rest time in between your different skills, which is a very efficient way of training. But another way that you can do combined trainings is basically by doing combos. I guess you've seen the top athletes doing them on Instagram. You can combine your planche and your front lever or any other skill in one set basically, and then add a bit of longer rest. But those trainings are very efficient as well, because guess what? If you do 10 sets of a combo, right, and you rest, or you do the set every 5 minutes, right? Let's say you have like 4 minutes and 30 seconds left of rest. Well, that's 10 sets that you now have of not only planche or not only front lever, but planche and front lever and any other skill that you're adding into the combo. So it's gonna be a very good training. But yeah, that's it for today's training. Tomorrow is gonna be a skill day again, because, well, I have 2 days until my my next push-up session. But yeah, it's gonna be, well, is it gonna be fun? It's gonna be worth it. I don't know. Like, I feel like saying it's gonna be fun is kind of, well, a bit lying to myself as well, because of course I like to train, but there are definitely more fun trainings coming up on the horizon. But, I just have to be patient for those and keep working so that I can recover properly and get to them. But yeah, I'm gonna head downstairs, have some dinner, and I'll see you tomorrow for another skill session.